The man prosecutors say pulled the trigger on Dallas rapper Mo3 was just attacked in federal prison and left in critical condition. And that news broke at the exact moment one of the biggest murder-for-hire cases in hip-hop history was heading toward trial. That timing sent the internet into overdrive. If the alleged shooter got hit behind bars right before he could testify, what does that mean for the case against the man accused of ordering the hit? What does it mean for the trial? And what does it mean for a family that's already waited 5 years for answers? Let's break down how we got here. Melvin Abdul Noble Jr. The world knew him as Mo3, was born in 1992 and grew up in the projects of North Dallas, an area he later called Afghanistan in his music. Like a lot of kids shaped by poverty and limited options, he had brushes with the law early on. His father redirected him toward music instead, and that decision changed everything. Mo3 dropped his debut mixtape in 2014, and Dallas immediately recognized something different: a melodic, soulful delivery paired with the kind of street honesty that only comes from actually living it. By 2020, he'd linked up with his idol Boozy Badazz for a joint album that landed on the Billboard 200, and the single Broken Love went double platinum. He was 28 years old, a father, and he was finally arriving at the national stage Dallas had known he deserved for years. Then came November 11, 2020. Mo3 was driving on Interstate 35E in Oak Cliff when a masked gunman pulled up beside him in a black Camaro. Surveillance cameras mounted on a nearby 18-wheeler captured what happened next. The gunman got out, Mo3 ran, and the shooter chased him down on foot, firing multiple rounds. Mo3 didn't survive. The footage spread across the internet within hours, turning his killing into one of the most publicly documented murders in hip-hop history. Within weeks, investigators identified a suspect: Kewan Dontrell White, a 21-year-old also known by the rap name Banzu. Public tips helped confirm his identity after police released images from the footage. Phone records showed calls between White and another individual leading up to the murder. Cell phone data placed him near where Mo3 had stayed the night before, then tracked a path that mirrored Mo3's own movements. Witnesses identified him as the gunman. In February 2021, a Dallas County grand jury indicted him on murder charges. Separately, in 2022, he pleaded guilty to a federal firearms charge and was sentenced to roughly 9 years in federal prison, a sentence that runs alongside, not instead of, the state murder case. But this was never just about the man who pulled the trigger. The streets had been saying since 2020 that this looked like a paid hit. And in March 2025, the investigation confirmed exactly that. A Dallas County grand jury indicted Maris Conway, known professionally as Yella Beezy, on capital murder, alleging he hired Kewan White to kill Mo3 for payment. Beezy, a prominent Oak Cliff rapper who broke out with That's On Me in 2017, was arrested days later and eventually released on a $750,000 bond under house arrest. He's pleaded not guilty. Under Texas law, capital murder carries life without parole or the death penalty. Prosecutors say this case grows out of a years-long, escalating feud that started in the streets, not the studio. It traces back to a dispute over whether Conway was really from Dallas, an assault, a shooting death, and a retaliatory drive-by that left Conway himself wounded. The conflict bled into music and social media for years afterward. Mo3 referenced Conway directly in a 2019 track, and in a recorded interview, Mo3 said out loud that he'd heard there was money on his head. In 2024, a civil jury separately found Conway liable for assaulting Mo3's manager outside a Dallas nightclub just months before Mo3 was killed. Then there's the money. Prosecutors point to a $40,000 cash withdrawal Conway made in the days after the murder as a key piece of financial evidence. And in a filing earlier this year, they listed several of Conway's own songs they intend to use at trial, 2 of which were reportedly found in text messages he sent a co-defendant on the day of the killing. Now here's where Kewan White becomes the center of everything. He's already serving 9 years on a federal gun charge. On top of that, he's facing a capital murder charge of his own, the same charge Conway faces. He's the man on the surveillance footage, the man the phone records and location data place at the scene. The case against him is about as strong as it gets, and when someone is staring down that kind of certainty, cooperation becomes the only real card left to play. Conway's own defense team seems to think exactly that. They filed a formal motion demanding the state disclose any deals, immunity agreements, or benefits offered to witnesses. Lawyers don't file that kind of motion as routine paperwork. They file it because they believe someone is talking. And what makes White's potential cooperation so dangerous for the defense isn't just that he was there. It's that he'd know everything phone records and financial documents can't show on their own. Who reached out first, what was said, what was promised, what was paid, and when. That's the kind of first-hand account that turns a strong circumstantial case into one a jury has almost no room to walk away from. Prosecutors don't take a death penalty-eligible case to a grand jury without already knowing roughly what their cooperating witnesses are prepared to say. By the time that indictment dropped in March 2025, they already had a clear picture. Which brings us back to the attack. While White was sitting in federal custody, he was assaulted and left in critical condition. And when that news hit, people connected to this case understood immediately what it likely meant. A key witness in a capital murder case getting attacked right before trial isn't random. It reads like a message, and the message is don't testify. Think about what's on the line. If White takes the stand and walks a jury through exactly how this was arranged, the case against Conway becomes close to airtight. The footage already shows the chase down I-35. The phone records already show the calls. The financial records already show the withdrawal. Add a cooperating witness who was physically part of the operation, and you have one of the most complete murder-for-hire cases this city has ever built. That also means White's testimony was worth silencing to the people most threatened by it. And the timing of this attack, right as the trial approaches, isn't lost on anyone watching this case closely. What this does practically is put White's availability as a witness in question. His physical and mental condition heading into trial is now a real factor. On top of everything else, prosecutors have been building for years. And to be clear about the scale of what prosecutors have assembled here, this case was never resting on one man's testimony alone. There's the surveillance footage of the actual shooting, cell phone location data, phone records connecting multiple people, the $40,000 withdrawal, text messages containing specific lyrics sent the day of the murder, a documented feud going back years, a civil jury verdict, social media evidence, and alleged gang ties. Over 16 terabytes of material in total. As the lead investigator put it plainly in pretrial testimony, the lyrics aren't the case, they're the context. The hard evidence is what's actually carrying this prosecution. Through all of this, it's worth remembering who this case is actually about. Mo3's catalog has only grown in stature since his death. In 2024, on what would have been his 32nd birthday, his estate released a posthumous album built from unreleased material and collaborations with artists he inspired. His estate fought to protect his unreleased vocals through a restraining order in 2023. His hashtags, Long Live Mo3, LL3, never stopped circulating. He turned a hard upbringing in North Dallas into music that sounded like diary entries, and an entire city heard themselves in it. His death didn't fracture Dallas's hip-hop scene, it brought it together, with other artists picking up where he left off, which is exactly what he would have wanted. So here's where things stand. Keijuan White is in federal custody, serving his gun sentence, facing his own capital murder charge, and now recovering from an attack many believe was meant to keep him quiet. Yella Beezy is on house arrest fighting his indictment, with his lawyers trying to figure out exactly what White may have already told prosecutors. A second man, Devin Maurice Brown Jr., faces his own charges in connection with the same killing. And every piece of this, the footage, the money trail, the feud, the civil verdict, now the prison attack, keeps pulling the case tighter as it heads toward trial. Mo3 was 28, he had children, he had a city that loved him, and everything that's happened since November 11th, 2020, every indictment, every hearing, every new development, still comes back to one man who deserved to be alive to see how far his music was about to go. What do you think happens next in this case? Drop your thoughts below and hit that notification bell. We'll be right here with every update as this trial moves forward. Long live Mo3!